Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to take our next step in becoming a ReSharper Samurai. This is another episode in a multi-part series where we will explore ReSharper and what it can do for you and how it can increase your coding productivity. This is not going to be another one of those hip, cool ReSharper training videos that plays techno in the background, flash on the application at lightning speed. This video will walk you through some of the various things that ReSharper can do for you at a pace that allows you to understand what is going on and how it's being done. Today's episode we're going to focus on various refactoring and code shortcuts of ReSharper that allow us to quickly and simply create code that is useful in classes and methods. I'm going to go ahead and leave this keyboard Jedi up and running. This will show us what keystrokes I'm hitting as I'm doing my refactorings. I do have the IntelliJ keyboard binding set for ReSharper. If you don't want that, maybe you're using the default keyboard bindings, it's entirely possible that the keystrokes you use will be different. So pay attention to this, give you a good idea what's going on. Let's go ahead and get started. First things first, I have all these using statements and they're not being used. How do I know they're not being used? Well, they're grayed out. Let's go ahead and kill those. Hold down Alt, hit Enter, get the menu, remove the unused directives, that's fine. Let's make this public. Now normally when you have a class you want a constructor, so let's go ahead and create a constructor. I'm going to hold down Alt Insert, bring up the Generate menu, hit Enter, it's going to create a constructor. Now many times when you have a constructor, you probably want to pass in parameters. So let's go ahead and pass in an int32. ReSharper realizes I don't have an int32, it's going to offer me to create these using for it. So I'll go ahead and Alt Enter, and I'm going to create pay rate. Now normally when you pass in a value, you probably want to store that value somewhere. In my case, I want to store it as a property. Now if I hold down Alt, hit Enter, I can bring up the menu, I can create initialize as a field or as an auto property. Let's go ahead and create it as an auto property. Now let's go ahead and change this to private because I don't want that publicly exposed. Now in many cases you probably are going to have some methods in your class, otherwise your class isn't terribly useful. Let's go ahead and create a method real quick that calcs pay rate. And this takes in an int32 and we'll call this multiplier. Now in order to calc pay rate for our business, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to do a return statement here and I'm going to do multiplier times pay rate. And then because we actually want to calculate on a daily basis, we'll divide by 7. Now in my scenario here it's pretty simple logic, but what if I had multiple lines of code here that really didn't fit and they calculate pay rate? What if I wanted to move those around? Well, the way to do it with our ReSharper is to copy paste and create new methods. Well, since I'm using ReSharper, I can very easily hold down Control Shift R and say extract method. And we'll call this perform calc. You can also get the same thing by just hitting Control Alt M. I like to go through the refactor menu. Now it's gone ahead and extracted all that logic. It's moved into a new method. It's actually reassigned up here to actually use that new method. Now in my case, I don't want 7 to be hard coded. I actually want to pass that in. So if I highlight it, hold down Control Shift, hit R, I get the refactor menu. Let's go ahead and introduce this as a parameter, and we'll call this days. It knows it's an integer, it creates as a parameter, replaces the 7 here, and moves the 7 up top. Now that's cool, but maybe I don't want to hard code 7 in my method signature. Well, Control Shift R again, and we'll extract this as a variable. It'll ask me how do I want it to do. I'll go ahead and create it as a constant integer, call it days, and it's 7. So real quickly, in a matter of a few keystrokes, I've gone from single line of code, and maybe I've been able to extract that to a method, take values, turn them into parameters, turn those parameters, hard-coded values being pushed into the parameters as a constant or a value. Now what if I wanted to create an overload that didn't include days? I could simply copy, paste, remove it, take care of all that business, but let's let ReSharper do it. I don't want days. Maybe I want default days to be 1 in certain scenarios. So hover over Dave, hit Alt Enter, go ahead and create an overload without a property. Let's change that to a 1. So extracts it, removes a property, defaults it to the 0, which integer 0, and allows me to change it. I have now 2 methods that are perform calc. Now, what are some other things I can do with ReSharper? Well, maybe I've got a method that takes 8 or 10 parameters and I don't want to pass them as multiple, as individual parameters. Maybe I want to pass them as an object. Well, I can do that. If I go to the signature of the method, I can come down here and I can come down and says extract class from parameters. It'll bring up this window and it knows what the parameters are, and I'll go ahead and hit it, and it'll actually create a public class for me with all the parameters in it, and it'll replace my instance right here. So pretty useful, pretty powerful. Now what if I wanted to, I don't want these as fields. Maybe I want them to, make it read-only, or maybe I want to encapsulate it in a field. So I've gone here and I've made this a field instead of a property. It's read and set. Now what if I want my setter to be private? I can come down to the setter part, hit Alt-Enter, and we'll go ahead and make this private. That way no one else can set it from the outside. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for days. And we'll come down here and make that private. So I'm not doing any fresh coding. I'm just hitting a few keystrokes and it's changing things around for me. Doing some stuff, pretty cool stuff, and I'm not doing much. Now, what else can we do? Maybe I can, what if I have an if statement? So let's go up to my perform calc method. What if I said if multiplier greater than 0, let's go ahead and create var days. Multiplier is greater than 0, days is going to equal 7, else days is going to equal 14. And we'll come down here and we'll change this to be days. Now this is a fairly simple if statement, but I don't have, maybe I don't want it to be an if statement, maybe I want it to be ternary. I can convert it to the question operator, highlight everything, and immediately will figure out how it should work, and I can flatten that out pretty quickly. So in a matter of about 5 or 6 minutes, I've shown you 7 or 8 different things, varying from creating parameters all the way to extracting code to the last thing we just did, which is flattening a if statement into a ternary. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It shows you what you can do with ReSharper. Hope you learned something. Until next time.